The pressure is on ad pricing at Google and Facebook. According to a Bloomberg analysis of earnings reports, a higher mix of international revenue and mobile growth is causing ad rates to decline. Google's cost per click was down 12% from last year, although the number of clicks was up 39%. And just today, Google is launching its mobile playbook to help both businesses and advertisers build their mobile presence. For more on the impact of mobile on Google, I'm joined by Google's head of global sales, global mobile sales, Jason Spero. That's a tongue twister. Jason, welcome to Bloomberg West.
Thanks for having me, Emily.
Tell me about this mobile playbook. Obviously, this is to help businesses build and invest in their mobile presence. And you guys have done a lot of research as to why this is important. Why should businesses devote resources to mobile?
Well, it starts with the consumer, right? We're living through a massive change in consumer behavior that's driven by smartphones and persistent digital connectivity everywhere we go, whether we're in our cars or in a store. And that's changing behavior, and it's changing the way we engage with businesses. So we're moving out of a phase where businesses are saying, is this a mass market phenomenon? Should we pay attention? I think the business case for mobile has been made, and now the questions we're getting from Google's customers are largely about how do I invest in mobile? What kinds of things should I do from an infrastructure perspective, from an organizational perspective, and from a media perspective? So the playbook is about trying to help them with that.
So obviously this is beneficial to Google's own mobile ad business. Give us a sense of how the mobile display ad business is doing compared to the mobile search ad business, which we know is where the bulk of the money continues to come from. How is the balance shifting?
Well, we don't break out the two, and they're both businesses that in their own right are doing quite well, although it's very early. I think they're both driven by the same fundamental phenomenon, which is that we're all using our phones more. With the display world, what you see people spending a lot of time in apps, being entertained, and on the web trying to solve problems. And ultimately, that's a very engaged customer. With touch screens and local behavior, that's a great opportunity to drive a display advertising experience. I think search is well understood that people are trying to solve problems, especially local problems, on mobile. And so they're two distinct businesses sold usually to solve different kinds of problems, but they're both doing quite well in their own right.
Right. And as I mentioned, clicks are going up dramatically, but the cost per click is going down because of mobile. So it's kind of a catch-22 for you guys. I mean, when do you see the gap closing? When do you see mobile catching up to desktop?
Well, I think fundamentally it's about, are you creating value for a marketer to engage with the consumer? And I think a lot of those marketers are having to be educated on how you engage that consumer and what kinds of things the mobile consumer wants to do on the go. But with the traffic growing, and with the opportunity to drive someone into a store or to drive someone out of a store as they learn more about the product they're going to want to buy or someplace else to buy it, we are creating value. I think the effort is broadly to educate the marketers on how to take advantage of this medium, but it's early days and it's been very good.
Let's talk a little bit about the competition. We talked about Apple's blowout earnings earlier in the show. Apple's iAd, though, is one thing the company hasn't seemed to have gotten right yet. How are they doing so far from your perspective? Are they making headway?
Well, I think we're less focused on how Apple's doing and more focused on the market and the market growth and working with agencies and advertisers to drive something that delivers value on their marketing spend.
Right, but there's more competition out there, Apple,
absolutely,
Facebook, millennial media. There's more companies trying to do what you do. How does Google differentiate itself?
Well, I think it's early days in the market as a whole, and I think you named a bunch of players, but there's also a broad range of people who are innovating, building specifically for this platform. As always, and I don't think this is specific to mobile, Google is trying to differentiate based on our ability to target, our ability to track, and our ability to deliver an audience that's in a certain mind frame, right? And so if we do a good job at that, we know that we're going to create value for the advertiser. We're less focused on how anybody in particular in the competitive set focuses on the space.
So I mentioned the F word, Facebook. Obviously, Facebook, just a couple of months ago, sort of revealed more plans about its mobile ad strategy. The IPO is coming up. How does Google sort of prepare for Facebook's expansion in this area going forward? I mean, you have to be preparing for this.
Well, I think what we're preparing for is a market that is learning about mobile. I mean, I think obviously we're watching the way other people approach the space and learning where we can. But I think fundamentally, this is about a market that's learning what works and learning how to build creative, learning how to target and engage that user. And I think our energy is largely being focused on the formats, the targeting, and the tracking to help a consumer have an experience that adds value to their day or their week, ending up in a store or whatever that is. How Facebook solves that problem, I don't think is as relevant for us.
Google's acquisition of Motorola Mobility. Does that change your job at all, or how does that affect you guys?
You know, I get that question. I get a lot about Android, a lot. And I think what's fun about my job is I'm completely agnostic. So from a media perspective, marketers don't necessarily want to reach someone on an Android device or a Motorola device specifically, or on an Apple device. What they want to do is they want to reach a user when that user is looking for a table in a restaurant, or when that user is researching a car standing on a car lot, or when that user is considering buying one product or another. And I think that's what mobile is great for. So when we try to deliver an audience or a user with intent, that's not specific to a platform or a handset manufacturer. It's more specific to the user.
Right, you're device agnostic.
I try hard.
Okay, Jason Spero, head of Google Global Mobile Sales. Thanks for joining us today on Bloomberg West. We will, of course, keep watching this rapidly growing mobile market.